Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Afi. This is a little bit of wisdom. Welcome back guys. This is this is my first video back since I think maybe a year ago. I haven't even sat in front of the camera like this speaking in a very long time. I did a few clips you've seen in the other vlogs. If you haven't watched those, I'm gonna leave them up here. Just go and check those out. So I did a few clips where I was sitting in front of the camera, talking, stuff like that, but this has been a very long time since I've done it, so I'm just getting used to it. I decided to use a safe video to come back. I was thinking about doing a how have I been type of thing, but that's kind of deep, honestly. So we'll do books. As you can tell by the title, we are now discussing the books that I've read so far. So I'm going to start by talking about my reading goal for the year. So my reading goal for this year is to do 40 books by December. I'm currently at 15 books. I really hope that I can make it. So I want to just run through quickly all the books that I've read this year with a rating. A picture is going to come up right now of the books and the rating that I've given. And so the first book I read was Outdated, which I think I gave a 3-star, a 2-star, something like that. Second book I read was Welcome to Adulting, 3 stars. Third book, Forgiving What You Can't Forget, that is a 5-star book. It was so good, it's a book. Then the third one, the fourth one, whatever. My list is all over the place, so just, that's where we are. Next, I read a book called Happily Letter After, which was a fiction book. That was a 5-star just because it was a cute fiction book, basically. Then I did Outliers, 5 stars. Year of Yes, 5 stars. Ray, 2 stars. It was just not word. Rosie Project, the Rosie Project, 3 stars. 11 Minutes, I did 4 stars. That's actually a really good book. First time because I read better books basically this year, but this book was top notch and could actually get to the 5-star category in my opinion. Finding the Hero in Your Husband is another one that I read, which current season, if you've watched the other vlogs, I'm now married. 10 was Black Girls Must Die Exhausted, such a good book. That was an ebook that I read. Next one was Black Girls Must Be Magic, such a good book, honestly, absolutely loved it. It's a trilogy, so it's a third book I haven't read yet. The next book was True Love, Sex and Health, current season, so gotta be on brand. The other one is The Core of the Universe, which is another one that's kind of on brand based on my current season. And then I did Gone Girl, which is a fiction thriller book. Oh my gosh, absolutely bomb, 5 stars. And then I read The Rosie Effect. I usually just finish it, so when I was planning out this video, I was in the middle of reading this book. Now we're done. I read it, I finished it, and I'm going to share with my friends at the end of yeah, that's a quick rundown of books that I've read this year. Those add up to 16 books at this point, which is good. It's such a big goal that I have to read 40 books. But last year I read 24 books without even trying. I think my goal was about 20 books. So I'm optimistic that I can make it, Alright, so I wanted to give my faves and I wanted to give notable quotes from my favorite books, basically. And this is in no particular order, but I will say the book that I'm starting with was my absolute favorite for this year. I have not yet read a book that has topped this one on my list of faves. So for the self-help category, I read Year of Yes, Perfect by Shonda Rhimes. It was such a good book. The basic idea is that so many times we're living at the bare minimum, we're not really experiencing life the way we want to, and we are the ones standing in the way of us living our best life, basically. And that was the general idea of this book. I loved it. So there was a quote, basically, which I'm going to put up here, and it's basically, if you want bad things to stop happening to you, stop accepting them, be different, do better. This quote, I got it from the actual show Grey's Anatomy, created by Shonda Rhimes, of course. But I think the thing that makes this quote so important, and in the book it's different, it was written differently, so you're gonna see it because I put it up, but the idea that sometimes we kind of just sit there and we cry and we're victims of our lives and we're like, this is so bad, we're so sad, and we're shouting at everybody and we're blaming everyone, but it's no, you kind of have to take a step and do better for yourself. You have to decide what it is you want and go for it. And if this was a big lesson this year, I loved it. So yeah, that was first book. For the religion category, my favorite book was Forgiving What You Can't Forget by Lisa Terkeurst. I don't know how to pronounce her name, but that was my favorite book. And the whole idea that forgiveness doesn't just happen to us. You have to first of all make the decision to forgive somebody, and then you have to act in a way that you've forgiven somebody, and you have to take the steps to forgiveness. Mind blowing. As a young adult, guys, I'm just now recognizing forgiveness is such a difficult thing to do, and I didn't know how hard it was until this year, and I've really been on a journey, to be honest. And this book was so good for me at the time because I read it in January, before everything that I know now. I read this book, and I 100% recommend this book for anybody in this life, honestly. Like, it doesn't even matter. You need to read it. Um, yeah, that was that. Black literature category, my favorite book was Black Girls Must Die Exhausted by Jane Allen. I actually interviewed this author. So if you don't know, I work for a bookstore. I interviewed the author 2 months ago. So you can check out that live. It was really fun, honestly. It's on the page. And this book is really difficult for me to like recommend and talk about without giving spoilers, but the idea of dying exhausted and being a Black girl and dying exhausted, it goes from being a bad thing at the beginning of the book to being a good thing at the end of the book. And I got to the end of the book and I just thought, I want to live a life that when I die, I want to die exhausted. You know, I don't want to die feeling like I have more energy to do things. I want to live my life fully and wholly and know that I lived. That's my favorite song, by the way, by One Republic. So that was a fave. Next book in the business category was Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Wow, this was it. Honestly, I think the idea of success is so, like, there's a lot to it, right? There's many people who say you need to work hard. Some people say you need to work smart and all of those things. And this book puts it into perspective that so many times our success is not based on what we do, but the people that came before us, the people that set up our environment. And it's wonderful to think about because, I don't know, we just don't think about it sometimes. So I really like this book because of that. So from the marriage category, which, you know, current season, as I said, my favorite book was actually True Love, Sex and Health. And it's because there was a lot of insight in terms of like, just, it was a question and answer book and it was good answers, honestly. I feel like there's some books that are very, like, they just don't give good advice. And this one was like really good. And I was reading it with my husband as well. So that was really nice. So I like that book. And for the fiction category, my favorite book was Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. Wow. When I read this book, first of all, I don't read thriller that much. It doesn't scare me, but like, I'm like, why am I scaring myself? You know, that kind of thing. This book was so good. Very, very good. Highly recommend it. It's long. It's a lot. It's heavy. You have to be ready for a little bit of like messed up things, but it's really, really good. When I finished it, I just was like, I need to read the other one that she wrote, the next one called Darkest Places, I think, something like that. I haven't read it yet, but when I do, I will come back. So one honorable mention, because I just didn't want to leave this one out, was 11 Minutes by Paulo Coelho. Oh my lord, this book was so good. It was really, really good. I think it was just very unexpected. I love the way the story was told. I liked the setting. I liked the development of the characters. The main character, especially, her story is so sad but also so insightful, and I think it puts so many different things into perspective. And I just really like this book, so I highly recommend it as well. So we're going to get into how I read so much. And so I have 2 tips for that. First of all, I read when I'm en route to anywhere, basically. So if I'm in an Uber or if I'm in a matatu, I will be reading. Like, if it's a place where I don't require to be talking to anybody or be social, because, you know, if you're in a personal car, then you kind of have to talk to the driver and stuff like that. But when you're in an Uber, sometimes it's like you can't, like, you don't have to talk. Sometimes you can, sometimes you don't have to. And then matatus, who are you talking to? Unless you're friends with the next person, you know. So in any of those situations, I read. So that actually in the beginning of the year really helped me knock out a lot of books. And then I switched to physical books so that I can read in matatus, because who wants to be pulling up their phone in a matatu? Not me, that's for sure. After being stolen from, absolutely not. So the second thing is I prioritize reading time right before bed. I started this practice about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago at this point. And so after my evening routine, I basically just like sit in bed, I read my Bible, I journal, and then when I'm done with all of that, like spiritual stuff, I pick up my fiction book, and that's the last thing that I do until I'm groggy. So I feel like because I've been reading for a while, there was a time when I couldn't put down the book, where I'm like, I want to get to the end. And there's some books that you read and you just want to get to the end. So by the time you're finishing, it is 5 a.m. in the morning. But there are some books that they're good enough to read, but like not enough that you're like too curious, you know. So those books, I'll read them at night. And I also just try to discipline myself, basically. Like, okay, when I'm getting tired, just like sleep instead of getting through that threshold. Because there's a threshold, and then when you pass it, now you're not sleepy until 5 a.m. You know, it's kind of whatever. So I know some people like to read in the morning as well, so they do it as like part of their morning routine. So that's another tip that you can have. And then there's a big question of ebooks versus physical books. I read whichever. It just depends. Ebooks are really cheap. If you find those Instagram stores, some books have like 80 bob, some are 50 bob, some are 100 bob. Some people like audiobooks. There's all of that stuff. And then there's physical books. For me, I like physical books because I can read them in town. I can read them when I'm in a place where it may not be so secure to have your phone out. So for me, I prefer physical books for that kind of thing. But if I can't find a physical book, or if it's too expensive, or I'm not in the season to buy, then I'll buy an ebook, and that works perfectly. It just means I can't read like as quickly as I want to, unless I'm just going to stop everything and just read. That's what happens sometimes. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is why I read so much, and why I encourage you to read as well. So first of all, a lot of my language is based on reading. I've always had a reading habit. My mom has encouraged it by buying me books. When I was younger, she used to just buy me books. Whenever I would ask, she would buy. So that was really nice. And then when it came to a point where like buying books is a bit too much, like I realized I was getting through books very quickly, and it's like, this is actually spending a lot of money. I started reading books from the library in school. So then that just became a habit. So that was really fun. Then in high school, I started reading Wattpad, which was like a free website, blah, blah, blah. And it was really nice. But then a lot of the books are really risque, and you can sit on the line of like not bad, but like, you know what I'm saying, that kind of content that's just like risque and like not so good. And so when I became an adult, I just kind of was like, don't want to be reading that kind of content anymore. Then I went into reading after uni especially, and it's just fun now. The other thing is I've learned so much about different parts of the world based on reading. I read the book How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House, and it's so nice. Like it's one of the, like, I never thought about, I guess it's Barbados, that's the country in that book, and I just never thought about it. But reading that was just like, it just puts stuff into context. It's just nice. It's like, wow, I feel like I'm there as well, kind of cool. The next thing is reading teaches a lot. So even fictional books, I think there's a misconception that the only books that like are serious and they teach are business books, self-help books, political books, autobiographies. Like those are the ones if you want to learn something. But fiction also teaches quite a bit, and I highly recommend reading fiction just for fun, but also you gain a lot from reading fiction books. So highly encourage that. And then the last, like the final reason why I like to read and why I would encourage someone to read is that it really helps me with anxiety regulation. So the idea that I have to like sit down and focus my mind on a book makes it so that I block out all the other things that are like stressing me, and for just like 30 minutes I can be calm and I can be chill. And sometimes you're too stressed to read, and you just kind of tell. It's like you can't focus on a sentence, you're reading the same sentence 3 times. Like there are times when you're just not in the space, and you kind of have to learn how to just follow that, because sometimes that happens and you think, oh, I'm just not a reader, and it's like, no, you just have too much in your mind and this is not the time for it. So for me, it's helped so much in that. Even the idea of creating it, of adding it into my evening routine, it's so good. It gives me so much peace. It's so nice. So highly recommend it. So that's it for this video. I didn't want it to be too long. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave your book recommendations down below in the comments. Let's recommend books to each other. I said I was gonna end with the books that I'm currently reading. So I'm currently reading Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson, and I'm also reading a book called something Masquerade. I forget. It's called Beyond the Masquerade. So it's about like self-reflection and stuff like that. It's quite deep. I started it a few months ago. I haven't made progress yet, but it's a really good book. This Who Moved My Cheese is where it's at. Also follow me on Instagram. I update the books that I've read, and I give a little bit of a review of my thoughts of the books. So just check that out. I'm going to leave it in the description box as well, so you can check it out. And yeah, leave me your book recommendations. What are you reading? What's a book that you could read again and again and again? What's a book that you wish you could read for the first time? And yeah, that's basically it from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Bye.